Hello, welcome to another episode of Crownsmen Energy. I'm your host, Jerrod Downey. We have two guests in the studio today from Vorsana. Now, they are dealing with radial counterflow separation. You notice I'm looking down at my notes very quickly because I spent a lot of time trying to understand the technology, and I am actually starting to grasp it a bit, but thankfully we've got the CEO and the executive vice president in. So we have Miles McGovern and Andrew McGovern on the show today. Before we jump into Vorsana, we got to hand it over to our sponsors. So, Gaudy, take it away.
Okay, today we have Savanaugh Equipment. Are you working on pipelines, oil and gas projects, renewable energy, or LNG, and need to save some cash? Well, you can visit Savanaugh Equipment. They have industrial pumps, electrical equipment from motors to transformers, and even surplus pipe and much, much more available now. Visit savanaughEquipment.com where you will find more equipment every day. We also have SolarSet. Introducing the SolarSet Fold, the new foldable frame solar system brings power to your residential and commercial property and can be shipped worldwide. Like all SolarSet products, the SolarSet Fold comes turnkey, pre-assembled, and is easily transported and installed. You can learn more about the SolarSet Fold and their full line of amazing solar systems at solarset.com. And last but not least, we have PowerZone. When you need a specialized team of world-class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems, no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with PowerZone. Visit them at powerzone.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single episode of Crownsmen Energy. You can also contact us if you'd like to be part of the show at info@crownsmen.com.
Okay, thank you, Gaudy. And okay, Miles and Andrew, welcome to the show. Good to have you on. I hope you're ready for some very untechnical questions as I try to figure out what you're doing over there, but it's pretty interesting stuff. So maybe Miles, we'll start with you. Can you just could have give us that bird's eye view of Versana?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jared. We're a clean tech company, and we really, as you said, focusing on a couple of key areas. There's three. Number one is how do you create and build sustainable long-term products, profitable products from waste? Another area of focus is into reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And then the third is the reclamation of contaminated environments. And where we started with this is to look at, in particular, how we can have an impact in terms of the energy transition and looking at how do we clean up and support the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and in the current environment of the oil sands, as well as then building towards a longer term, more sustainable clean tech energy solutions.
I have to ask, Miles, has there ever been a better time to be in this space with things like government regulations driving through and companies needing to meet those demands and those regulations?
This is why we're here. When we started the company, it was really looking at the demand and the opportunity within this space. There are some big problems with big opportunities, and so that's really where we're looking at focusing the company.
I guess before we go, Andrew, welcome to the show as well. From what I understand, it's a father and son here, right? Is that who do we have on the show?
That's correct. Father and son team.
So have you guys, we're going to get into the technology and everything. Have you guys had a chance to work together before, or is this the first company you've got to be on a project with?
No, actually, Andrews and I have worked together for many years. I think he was, in our previous company, we had a technology capturing 360-degree video. He was actually, I think, a Google Street View driver for us. We were the guys behind Google Street View. So
you were the guy taking my picture.
Yeah, and then we built up that company and sold it to Digital Domain down in LA, and Andrew worked for them for a couple of years. And we've now focused on what we believe is a big opportunity here.
Can you talk to us, and I know we're going to talk about into that sort of that transitioning technology, Andrew, and we'll bring you in for that. But Miles, can I stick with you for just a moment to just sort of outline a little bit more about the technology that you're developing at sort of a high level?
Sure. There's two basic parts to this. Number one is, leveraging the radial counterflow, which is a separation technology that we are leveraging that across both the solids, liquids, and gases. So applications in those areas of pyrolysis into biofuels, the carbon capture areas, as well as mentioned reclamation of contaminated environments, tailing ponds, and so forth. But the other thread in that is we had recently acquired a company, Nanostech, and that was for the catalysts. They are a nanoparticle catalyst company, and the catalyst is really the most efficient and effective way to environmentally cause a change within that environment. And so leveraging those catalysts is extremely important.
So when you started Vorsana, just to sort of put it together, the products you're developing and now the acquisitions, was that sort of a goal right from beginning to start to sort of acquire some of these technologies and these systems and sort of put together that ecosystem? Is that part of the goal?
Yes, yeah. I mean, basically, when we looked at it, the first project we were starting with was a pyrolysis project. We moved that from Portland State University to the University of Calgary. And there's three components within there. There's your feedstock, your reactor, and then the upgrading of the oil that you create afterwards. So what we're trying to do is consolidate. So the catalysis portion of the upgrading of the oil is where Nanostech came into play. So we look at how do we either build, buy, or partner with the appropriate people to provide a solution.
Where is the industry at? Like when you're talking, is there a lot of interest right now in what you're doing and sort of these collaborations with the large organizations? And when you're on the outside looking in, which I am a little bit, it feels like there's a lot of demand for what your targets are. Is that what you're seeing in your actual day-to-day conversations?
Absolutely. I mean, this is, front and center in every clean fuel standard. So it's dealing with the decarbonization of the existing fossil fuels. It's looking at, ways of carbon capture and reducing our carbon footprint overall. Obviously, this is very topical with the both provincial and federal governments. It's global. So this touches every industry.
Andrew, I want to jump over to you for a minute because I wanted to sort of understand what is different that you're doing than that is being done right now? Because there has been a lot of movement and a lot of talk over the last 5 years, some technologies being developed. Where's Vorsana coming in that you can actually see that distinct difference that you're bringing to the market and sort of that projection going forward?
Yeah, there's a couple of different facets. One is we have a belief here at Vorsana that, we are undergoing an energy transition, not a revolution. So number one, a lot of people believe that, tomorrow we're going to wake up and we're all going to be driving electric vehicles and we'll have solar panels on the top of our roof. That's going to be a reality in the long term. But the reality today is we consume 95 million barrels of oil a day. At best, most reasonable estimates are in 30 years, we're going to be consuming 60 to 7 million barrels a day. There's a big opportunity in finding solutions around how we can decarbonize fossil fuel. And that's kind of where Vorsana is focusing a lot of our efforts. We're developing technologies that are making a meaningful impact today that are being able to decarbonize fossil fuel across the board, from where it's being produced and extracted from the ground to where it's being used as a fuel in transportation to being able to capture the emissions that actually happen post combustion from using carbon capture and so forth. So part of our focus here is really how do we start to target the fossil fuel and really start to decarbonize that to make a meaningful impact. And secondly, as we do that, all of our business models, it's really focused on how do you make profitable solutions for our customers today. So a lot of the fuels that we're producing, the carbon capture technologies, all of them have an immediate economic impact. We're not focused on really providing a green benefit where, something just costs more because it's green. We're providing solutions that are really lowering the cost of production and making it actually profitable and more efficient for these customers.
That must have its own. Why again? Because I'm not an engineer and I'm not a scientist, so those two things can make it tough for me to understand different elements of it. But where is the higher price that people are paying for some of these technologies? Is that an oversight on the development side of green technology? Is not looking at it from the way that you're approaching it? Has that actually held it back, do you think, or has it just been the technology hasn't been advanced enough?
It's a little of both, more on the advancement side. If you look at oil, it's a heck of a product. It costs less than a liter of Coke at the end of the day. You have an infrastructure that allows you to deliver a high energy source, to a customer to heat their home, power their car, and it, ultimately costs less than a liter of Coke that you buy at the store. That's a pretty high bar for an incumbent technology. But you look at all of these other technologies that are coming in trying to disrupt the energy space, like solar, renewable fuels. They're all coming in and they are, higher initially, but they're all starting to, decline in their cost of production. And it's very similar like any technology when it comes into the market, right? Any disruptive technology tends to be, a little cost prohibitive initially, but as it starts to gain traction and grow, that cost of production goes down. And you've seen that across the board in, cost of renewable fuels, cost of solar per megawatt. All of that is all declining. So you're going to hit that inflection point when it just becomes, more profitable for companies to start using these alternative forms of energy.
Miles, over to you. There's so much talk about 2030, 2040 goals. And some, again, a little bit from the outside looking in, when I hear, the government make statements, it seems like a pretty high goal to me. But sort of, can you talk about, as a company, where you see your place in some of these emission reduction goals?
Sure. And I think, building on what Andrew was saying, we're focused on delivering real solutions today. And so, as an example, we have a technology that we, as part of the acquisition of Nanostech, it's called ISUT. So it is, in the traditional fossil fuel sense, there's been steam-assisted gravity drain, the SAGD process for extracting oil, and they are trying to, as you said, kind of layer green things on top of that. Our approach has been a very different approach. What we're doing with this technology is injecting a catalyst directly into the reservoir. And what that does is it causes a reaction, a chemical reaction in the reservoir. So it adheres, this catalyst adheres to the rock wall of the reservoir and creates a fixed bed reactor, which upgrades the quality of the oil in situ, so in the ground. And the producer is able to extract more oil, and it's a higher quality oil, and they're doing it with reducing their greenhouse gas emissions by 50%. So all of a sudden, you're now taking a major disruption in terms of the existing process of how do you produce that liter, barrel of oil. And we're able to not only have a significant environmental impact on getting them to their 2030 goals today, but we're able to hit their bottom line with being able to produce better quality oil faster.
So where's the technology at? Like, for in industry ready standards, where is it at right now?
This technology has been, we did a fairly significant due diligence with Advisian doing a lot of our supporting work and looking at the technology. It has been through numerous simulations, lab scale build out. We have a $5 million skid that has been produced and is ready for deployment. It was to be deployed down into Mexico. It's been delayed a year. And so what we're looking to do is deploy that into a reservoir this summer. So it would be what they would call a TRL 7, so technology readiness level 7.
Actually, just a quick side note. What with everything, being shut down and global supply chains and all these things that we're dealing with right now, has there been any? I mean, obviously, the disadvantages is sets back development or deployment, I should say. Has it given you an opportunity to sort of iron out your business strategy in that? Has there been any upside to this type of situation?
I mean, we've been running pretty hard at this and very focused around what we have to do. I think the nice thing is it has given a lot of other people in the industry the time to sit back and go, what are we doing? And the traditional process is when you get some of the large players in the oil sands that have to go, hey, what are we doing to really impact and our ESG strategy for them? They look to these types of technologies and go, hey, this can help us in this area.
Yeah, Andrew, I want to jump it over to you because you sort of touched on these other technologies coming online, and I want to talk about that a little bit. I was on your website. I've been on it a few times, and it's one of these things that it's I kind of go. I see I'm trying to find if there's similarities between the technologies, but it looks like you have multiple technologies for different streams, different applications. Can you talk about some of the other products you have coming online or that are online?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of those products are really based on a kind of a core platform, which we like to call Radial Counterflow. Not to get too technical into it, it's essentially harnessing this idea of vortex separation. So how we create these little vortices is between two spinning disks, and they really provide a powerful source of separation across anything from liquids to solids to even gases. So we take this baseline technology and we apply it to actually different products and different market applications. One of them is our renewable fuel side. So what we're currently doing right now, we're developing a process that can take a number of different waste feeds. So anything from municipal solid waste, agricultural residue, forestry residue, and we can actually break this down to its chemical components and reassemble them into a renewable transportation fuel, something that is a drop in gasoline, diesel, even jet fuel, something that a customer can either fill up right at the pump or can actually be blended into an existing fuel feedstocks that can be refined at refiners and so forth. So part of that Radial Counterflow platform is we're applying that to a whole renewable fuels process that's going to allow us to really convert waste and convert that into a transportation fuel. And the real benefits there is you're really providing that circular economy. But when you're dealing with this waste residue, such as agricultural, forestry, it actually has significant emissions reduction compared to regular gasoline. We're seeing upwards of 80% emissions reductions coming from a tailpipe of a car. So when you look at that from a policy perspective, using this type of renewable fuel, within the fuel market, you can have a significant impact in reducing emissions within the transportation sector.
So I just wanted to kind of, and both, either one of you could answer this, is it's sort of this goal though, and I think you've already answered, but I want to clarify, is sort of the goal to integrate this technology into, and we're going to do a little more forward looking as well, but currently integrate this technology in a way that doesn't disrupt the operations of the companies that are producing these fuels and in the ag sector and all this. You're trying to integrate in and then without being disruptive. Is that sort of the idea?
That's exactly right, Jerrod. And the way we look at it is there is such a complex supply chain and infrastructure around how we pull oil out of the ground and how we deliver it to consumers. And part of that whole, economic benefit and disruption that we're pushing with our technology and our process is really working within those supply chains. So when you look at our renewable fuels business, when we're taking that waste and creating a fuel, we're actually creating a synthetic low emission bio crude that is no different than regular crude oil. So it can be used at a refinery, it can be transported via pipeline. It can be used in a regular car. The car doesn't need any, modifications to its engine. So the whole idea of that drop-in fuel, that's what we're really pushing, because we believe we can integrate with, all the existing infrastructure that the petroleum industry has already built.
Miles, over to you. How do you? I mean, I've looked through your LinkedIn, and you've been at the head of a few companies. And how do you bring, in a market like this, where your sort of technology seems to be applicable in so many sectors? How do you sort of bring it all together?
I think it's always a challenge to make sure you focus and look at the applications. But the key common thread here is we have a very similar technology, and with the catalysts as well. And what we're doing is just really simple market segmentation and trying to work. When you look at the energy sector and what we've been chatting about in terms of a transition. This is an evolution, not a revolution. It's a transition that's taking place, and we're working, with those customers through that path. And we have a couple of different technologies that we support those individual groups. So we have, the ISUT product line, but when be right behind that, then we're working with the potential same customer on the biofuels and how they integrate that. They also have the same interest around carbon capture and, eventually taking that carbon and converting that into other useful products, energy products, syngas, carbon nanotubes, and nanofiber, so forth.
Is this, in comparison to some of these other companies, have you ever worked on a product that is this integrated across multiple sectors? It seems like the opportunity is absolutely amazing. But I was just curious, have you seen this much, a mixture of so much integration, but also into existing technologies that are, kind of side by side, but they're actually cross industries?
It is unique, because I think within this space, you're dealing with, huge operations, huge dollars that are, in terms of the energy creation and the energy demand. And so what we're trying to do is be very focused around delivering a very pragmatic solution of how do you deal with something today, and at the same time being prepared for solutions in tomorrow.
What about the companies you're talking to? How are you communicating to them? This is not, Andrew touched on it, is that the idea is not a cost increase. This isn't another financial drain on their company. It's what you're trying to get to. How do you have that conversation at a high level with these companies that are trying to make these major decisions?
I think most of them are starting to look at, they understand they have a problem, and they have to start to address this. Their investor base are letting them know that they've got to deal with these matters. And in order to do that, they have to start thinking outside the box. A lot of our solutions are there for that. So in the case of ISUT and the oil producers, I mean, they are absolutely, when they see what our technology can do, they're starting to say, hey, this is something we want to look at. They've been very upfront and going, this isn't snake oil. This is something that you guys, this makes sense. You're coming in, this is well thought out. You're well supported from an academic standpoint and the science behind it. Now we have to prove it. And then at the same time, they are, as Andrew said, every one of these companies is looking at a renewable plan and then trying to understand how they will integrate the renewable fuels into their current process.
And that's actually, you talked about the research, and that was a kind of a direction I want to understand as well. Is that how do you prove it to a customer before they start investing in new technology? Do you partner up with universities? Are you just with the acquisitions that they've already done, sort of that heavy lifting of proving the technology? Sort of what has been your approach?
Well, I think we've always enjoyed a very good working relationship with the universities and the academics. The acquisition of Nanostech, quite frankly, is a team of 20 PhD, chemical engineering PhDs from the University of Calgary who have been working on this for their whole careers, upgrading oils from Venezuela to the oil sands, doing a lot of this work. They're the same guys behind a lot of the new biofuels that have had quality issues and so forth. So they are taking what they've been studying for years and applying this. They as well have multi-million-dollar labs that they have been funded by the oil sector and have done all of the simulations on this. So as I mentioned, when Advisian was helping us with our due diligence, they were pretty impressed with the level of simulation that had been done, as well as all of the lab bench scale and the mass balances that have been calculated on this. It's now at the stage where you've got to go, okay, theoretically you've got it proven. Now you just got to prove it in the field, in a reservoir.
I'm always curious, Miles, when someone in your position and Andrew's and just developing these companies from day one. I've asked this question before on the show. From day one, the amount that it takes to get these technologies actually into the operations and brought into the market. Do you realize what it's going to take going in and the amount of detail that you're going to have to deliver? Or do you know that the technology is there and you start to just sort of one step in front of the other? What sort of was your approach to it?
Well, I think we're a little unique because we're not chemical engineers. I'm not an engineer. My background is business and computing science, and we bring the same approach that we brought in our other software companies and camera company, was a very iterative approach to getting in. How do we test this very quickly and do it cost effectively? And if you can prove that there's a model and a business there, that this is profitable for the customer, it helps them achieve their goals of reducing their greenhouse gas emissions, you've got a business that makes sense, and then you can fund it to the next step. So we try and keep that risk, mitigate any risk of taking those first couple of steps to prove it out. And that's sort of where we are right now. It's not $100 million implementation to prove this. This is a small little test, and we already have the CAT skid built. So it's just a matter of deploying it.
Andrew, I want to shift gears a little bit on where is your perception I would say you'd probably have, both of you would have a bit more of an educated guess than some of us would. Where do you see that 2050? You already touched on it a little bit, but where does the energy industry end up by, let's say, a 2050? And I don't mean like a full prediction. I mean, what are the things that are in development that we are going to see from your perspective?
It's always tough to try to predict the future, especially when you're predicting the future 30 years out. But I would say at 2050, obviously the movement towards electrification is really going to be taking hold, especially in first world developing countries like the North American market. EVs, solar, wind energy are going to play a greater and greater mix into the whole energy portfolio. I also see, again, those transition energy sources such as renewable fuels, carbon capture on natural gas electrification plants and so forth. They're going to play a greater and greater role because there's going to be a big need for, that decarbonizing technology, because the energy mix is still going to be made up of majority of fossil fuel sources. So those are going to play a really big role. And then, I wouldn't be surprised to see that, you're going to see these kind of new technologies, new energy sources starting to come onto the scene, like hydrogen, potentially even, newer wave technologies, who knows, fusion, maybe smaller modular nuclear reactors. Those will start to play, a minority role, but we'll be, starting to see more and more of those in the future.
This is a little bit of a tricky question, and I'll put it to both of you. And it's just something I don't understand, and I don't know if you have research right at your fingertips about it. But you talked a little bit. I mean, there's ag, there's forestry, there's waste, and the in the manufacturing sector and all these. How what is that total? I don't even know quite how to ask the question. Is it 5% waste that could be turned into renewable fuel? Is it 20%? Do you have a rough idea of what the number we're talking about? If what the amount of waste actually is, even if you had like one or two sectors you could highlight?
Yeah, it's an interesting statistic. Looking at the Canadian market specifically, the average Canadian produces about 2.7 kilograms of waste per day. We are, at a per capita basis, we are, the most wasteful country in the world. Worse than the US, worse than China, believe it or not. We also consume 3 liters of gasoline every day. We believe that, part of that whole circular economy approach, you can start supplementing a lot of that waste is being created on a per day basis with the demand for, transportation fuels. And we believe, and there's been, a lot of modeling out here that, you can start to make a very big impact in the transportation fuel supply with these, waste products that can potentially be created. Upwards of, a third of all waste, all transportation fuel can be supplemented by renewable fuels. Already, Jerrod, 5% of all gasoline within the US and soon to be Canada is already coming from renewable fuel sources. We already have regulations in place that say, hey, you need to have ethanol as part of your gasoline blend. So already 5% is already mandated by the government. And, we believe we can actually go further beyond that 5%, so long as you can provide, a great cost competitive product that's, equivalent to gasoline and traditional fossil fuels.
I mean, part of that vision, Jerrod, is, as building on what Andrew was saying here, is, you want to have that farmer, in the ag space, who is going to the silo to drop off his crop and be able to, drop off all of his waste products as well. And that, what we're focused on is the pyrolysis of that. We have a mini refinery technology that we're developing. So essentially that farmer would be able to go drop that off, fill up his truck back with diesel, a biodiesel, and continue back to farm. So you're creating, as Andrew said, that whole circular economy. And we're trying to bring this technology as well, right down to a very decentralized local type of environment that can be implemented.
And where would that, like, when could that happen? Again, I'm not asking for a future. You're a company that's growing, and I understand that. But I'm just, I mean, within a 10-year range, could that farmer, and I think that's the key. Could that farmer, if it gets the support and the development and gets to the right stages, could it happen in 10 years? Could a farmer be doing that?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree. I think, given where the, potential of the technology is right now, and given the appropriate, market and environment, I think within 10 years, you can start to see this being an even greater share of the transportation fuel market, and, more of an emphasis on that, geolocated, modular type, supply chains for transportation fuel.
We'll be in a pilot stage for, Q1 of 2022. And is the plan to start to combine the pyrolysis with the mini refinery and pilot those out.
Just before we wrap up, I guess maybe I'll do two versions of the same question. For you, Miles, what is it like? You've done a few companies and brought products to market, which is I mean, again, reading through your bio, what does it get? Does it get more exciting than this? I don't know if that's a great question, and I don't want to put you on the spot and go, no, the last business was way more fun. but but at the same time, this is a big thing to bring into an industry and really has an impact on life moving forward. Um, what is that sense, as you've done a few, do you still have that same sort of excitement about doing it, or how do you sort of approach it now?
I think it goes back to, what we said earlier is we're in this space for a reason. We see, a huge opportunity. And, our previous companies, that was part of it. We saw, hey, there's a problem, we can deliver a solution. And, we've always loved that pioneering new and disruptive technologies. And we just see this as such a fantastic opportunity. And there's so many, it's very much in its infancy. And there's a great opportunity to consolidate, aggregate technologies and companies to really provide meaningful solutions.
And Andrew, over to you. You've worked with you've worked with your father. You've worked with Miles on other projects before. Sort of, what do you sort of now? So if this is sort of like round two now, what is it like for you? This experience of taking something to market that's sort of such a big impact.
You know what? It kind of going on what Miles said was, a lot of our success and why past companies have been, very successful is, we've always done a good job at, really identifying a problem and providing a solution. And what's, a bigger problem than climate change? And, I have a 1-year-old daughter. It's how can you not, really be involved in a company that's, really building solutions is going to change that. And it's going to change, the future of a lot of our generations. This is a big issue. And, ultimately, people getting together, across the globe and really trying to solve, this problem of climate change through innovation. It's exciting. It's, it's a great opportunity. It's a really big problem, but, with these big problems need big solutions. And I think we can deliver on that.
Yeah. Thank you both for coming on the show. This is it's a tough interview because you are in these multiple sectors, and I hope at some point as it continues to develop, we can get you back on to sort of maybe pick out 2 or 3 to really unpack that technology specifically for it. I think it would be a very interesting interview. But I think this was a good start. So thank you both for joining the show today.
Jerry, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're going to have, if you've been watching, there's going to be pictures that we're showing, and that, they covered it on a high level and then sort of went in. So I know there's going to be a lot of questions, and I hope I did a good job. At least sometimes it's in this interview, it's just about me getting out of the way. So, it's very interesting what Vorsana is doing. We're going to have links to their website and be tagging them on social media. You'll see it on LinkedIn. So make sure to connect with them and follow what they're doing. It's sort of like this show. They're just getting started, so it's very exciting. If you want to suggest guests, we are booking now for the rest of the year. Right now, if you're watching this, we're in 2021 midway. We're going to be booking Crownsmen Energy shows for the year. We're starting ag shows. We've got the Crownsmen show. We've got mine now. Please keep reaching out. Guests, sponsors, we love working with you. We love being part of the voice of industry, and we will see you on the next episode of Crownsmen Energy.